Welcome to Connected Conversations. I am Elena Petrova, founder and CEO of Adastra Inc. Tune in as we share inspiring stories, connect with local heroes, and discover solutions that uplift us. Welcome to Connected Conversations with Elena Petrova, and we are back to our studio in Buenos Aires. Interesting podcast because we have very special guest, Analía Cordero. We are going to be talking about navigating through the times of uncertainty and change, because both of our countries, US and Argentina, in my opinion, going through similar times. And I've been talking to my friends, my colleagues, people that I met here. There are a lot of similar challenges that we experience, and I think that Analia can help us to get some tips how to learn new techniques when there is such a high level of, I would say, anxiety for some of us, to understand new rules that society is, the government is showing us new ways to, particularly in US and here too. And Analia, could you please tell us what work you have done and keep doing with communities on the counseling? And I understand that therapy and counseling are two different ways, the way that it is perceived in Argentina.
I can speak from a counseling perspective. We counselors accompany people who are seeking processes of change and transformation. We are currently addressing issues such as change and uncertainty in the face of these challenges that our society faces today in many ways, as a major paradigm shift for many, as a new social, political, and economic language. And this creates we notice a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty. Many questions about the future. And in a way, it also challenges what is ours here and now in relation to the current times.
Going back to the introduction, and could you tell us about the work that you do?
Yes, of course. Well, my professional job is as a counselor. We accompany people at different times and in different situations in their lives, which are usually significant, or going through some kind of difficulty, some kind of discomfort, some kind of crisis. At certain times, we work from a theoretical framework, which is the person-centered approach. The father of this paradigm is Carl Rogers. We work from a unique perspective, since this is a profession which we could say has two very important pillars. I personally state to my students, because I am also a teacher of the course, that this is a profession that has substance and soul. The body is the theoretical framework. It is what we incorporate as teachers, students, professionals, as something that is in the realm of what must be known. To achieve and bring what we are trying to create with the consultant, which is the bond, the interpersonal bond. On the other hand, what I call the soul has to do with the attitudinal framework, which is based on a few central concepts. One of them has to do with the consistency expected of professionals in the meeting, in the moment, the way to be present with the consultant. On the other hand, the positive and unconditional acceptance of their values, of their frame of reference, of their experience. And on the other hand, empathy or empathetic understanding, which is our strength. What we try to create, develop, and establish with the consultant. To understand as fully as possible their experience, their pain, their moment, their being. Which we say because we believe that everything is a continuous process, what we go through. So that's a little bit of a summary. In some new ways, counseling in Argentina, at least, is a way of being present, a form of accompaniment, a very special connection with the consultant. In relation to the attitudes I mentioned, seeking to generate a bond that brings about in the person growth, maturity, adjustment, change, transformation.
What do you think in today's community is important to, because when I come to Argentina, I really do believe that Argentinian communities are so warm, and the way that people connect in Argentina is very different. So I also think that approach to the therapy in Argentina is, I think that people are so open to therapy in Argentina and counseling. I know that you call it counseling. It's important to notice. So why do you think is that? Why people are, why Argentinian community is so open to, I would say, to improve themselves as a person, as a community? Do you see the same that I'm seeing? Is it lately, or was it a trend that started a while ago, or is it very recent?
Yes, I think there is a new social position regarding access to various assistive devices in relation to health. In counseling, we do not work with mental health. Rather, we do so from a preventive standpoint, from prevention and health promotion. But either way, if we encompass different approaches, even therapeutic ones, there is a better predisposition to resort to different support mechanisms in relation to the search for adaptation, well-being, and change. Sometimes from a place where the consultant seeks to learn how to respond to different stimuli. Intrapersonal stimuli and stimuli that come from the world, those that come from the community, those that come from society, those coming from the environment, from the context in which we find ourselves, in order to somehow adapt, grow, and address issues that arise in a healthy way.
Do you see those changes that society is taking to the approach towards counseling here in Argentina? Again, is it a recent change? Perhaps maybe after pandemic, because after pandemic society changed, and I think here in Argentina I hear more and more how Argentinians have never went back, and now there is the trend to be more individualistic society and be more like looking towards how US is living the lifestyle. Are you seeing the same, or do you think that approach to counseling is a part of that trend? That people are using counseling more right now is kind of like, is it the part of the societal change after pandemic?
Those who sought counseling did it from learning about the discipline. But I do understand that. Of course, it was a radical change. Having gone through the pandemic, its consequences, its losses, all the pain that it brought, the perplexity, the uncertainty, fear, death. In fact, a completely unknown and incomprehensible context. At times it seemed overwhelming. And that has led to major changes. Major changes in societies, probably in all of them. Each one surely from their own conceptual, social, and other frameworks. But in Argentina, it caused a great deal of damage. A lot of damage after the pandemic. In terms of consciousness, the notion of life. Of the finitude of life. From a lot of places that have to do with the understanding, the value of freedom. A whole series of, in my opinion, a series of events that have greatly affected mental health. And the demand for different types of assistance has grown tremendously. In the consulting room, we still hear many remnants of customs, fears, anxieties, losses related to the pandemic. I believe that the pandemic has changed the world. Although we are constantly going through a process of change in existential and phenomenological terms, well, that was a blow. A very strong blow in every way. In a comprehensive sense, in human beings. Of course, there are more resilient more resilient societies, communities, and individuals who are in a position to return to the system and to life perhaps from a more constructive perspective, more creative, I would say. But there is, and I believe there will be a lot of suffering over an extended period of time in relation to the pandemic. From associations related to that bring together counselors in the country, there has been an active participation to create volunteer opportunities and support for people who were in isolation at the time, people whose health was compromised, and they were unable to communicate with their family or stay in touch with their loved ones. And counseling fulfilled a very interesting social function in that regard. As I was saying, through volunteering, through being present, through accompanying different communities in different spaces.
What do you see the major challenges that the communities are going through right now?
I obviously have a biased view from my subjective perspective, of course. I understand that this is in relation to what I said earlier. Some people, communities, and societies are more resilient than others. Some people who have suffered. Above all, people who have suffered the loss of loved ones, who were unable to be present at the time of death, who were unable to be there due to isolation, due to contagion, which was a constant threat, and death was present in all its forms. And I think that, in a way, for many, though certainly not for all, but for many, this has left a wound that in some cases starts healing. In a way. And in others, the trauma remains, right? The blow, the pain of losing someone I couldn't say goodbye to.
Thank you. We're going to be living through this for a while. You're right. Closing that trauma is a process. What would be your advice for communities, for people like me, like many of us, who experienced that in life? And now we are also going through additional times of change, adversity, and uncertainty. On a level of counseling, what tips do you recommend to your clients?
Actually, through counseling, we've tried to facilitate these processes that have to do with a change, or with what we more technically refer to as a corrective personality experience. But I don't know if there are tips. It seems to me that from a process of self-knowledge, self-reflection, self-connection, with the center of the person from within themselves, there are possibilities for evolution, chances of moving forward, possibilities of harboring pain, harboring the pain of what has happened to us, inhabiting it without denying it, and somehow incorporating it into our history. History will be written in books in the future, and we will be included in that reality. And I think it has to do with a new reorganization on a personal and community level, a new awareness, a new conscience, rather. Let me correct myself. Of the value of life, the value of health, integrating the memory of those who are no longer with us, and go through this from a place that is as humanly possible, to integrate what has happened to us, what we have lost, what we have learned, from an open place, right? It's a bit like what we hope for. What we accompany, or what we desire. For people is that they can open themselves up to the experience, raise awareness of what they can do. And, well, especially in relation to loss and everything that has happened in relation to the pandemic and everything we have lost, above all, lives. But many people have lost opportunities, jobs, many options to choose how to live. I believe that adaptation is the way forward. Focusing on oneself. Knowing what we need, and look for the appropriate assistive device, to overcome this, to move forward with this in our history, without forgetting, but from the perspective of resilience, which has to do with coming out even stronger from the crisis, from the pain. Grown, strengthened, threatened from the crisis and pain that we have had to experience. On the other hand, I was also thinking that it would be, today I express it as a desire that develops in light of everything we have been going through. Solidarity, empathy at a social level, the closeness, and the awareness that we are all part of a great system, that we are part of nature, that nature can express itself this way. And it somehow makes us equal, puts us on the same level of vulnerability. The pandemic has put us all on an equal footing, where there was no difference, neither social nor class-based, or of being able or unable, or in social status. It made us all equal. and to become aware that we are truly equal. Perhaps it will give us the opportunity to develop an empathy that we might not have understood until now. Even the ability to understand others through their experience and to focus on a more human contact and think of ourselves in that sense as parts of a larger system that we make. As a part of nature, we are also nature. I say this because sometimes the notion of man or woman or human beings has a tendency to establish that we are more evolved than other species. And so this has shown us a common vulnerability, which has made us realize, I don't know if all of us, but many of us, that we are part of a world that has a tendency. And we have seen the tendency toward sustainability, the tendency towards improvement and survival. But death has also manifested itself.
And in your opinion, now that we are, and with the way that you are describing, I absolutely agree with you. Do you think as a society or community, we look for different way to connect with each other, learning to connect with each other differently?
Our country in recent times has been through some manifestations of nature, which have been very aggressive towards humans. And there is, again, in Argentina, throughout the country, not in particular sectors, great solidarity, great empathy, a great social response to assist those in need who are vulnerable. We have been through some very difficult times. In the southern part of the country with the wildfires, catastrophes, manifestations of nature that have been very aggressive. And we have seen a very supportive response from the public.
So you're saying that with the latest changes, post-pandemic changes, people connect differently and they are more willing to help each other. So you're seeing this as a positive change in the community?
I think so. That we have somehow learned I insist, when I generalize, I am not talking about everyone. But we have learned. The pandemic has not passed through our lives, leaving only pain behind. I think that, or I understand, that it has somehow brought about change. I don't know how it has been or how it is for other societies elsewhere in the world. But I understand that there are still things that are present and that we are as if the pandemic is still lingering. And we have a different way of behaving. in relation to what is happening to us, what we are going through as a society, then there is surely the world keeps spinning and other crises will come. Obviously, not as devastating as the pandemic has been. And we will find ourselves facing other problems. But I believe I have a certain outlook, a certain notion of human beings, which are constantly changing and growing, even in very adverse situations. And I understand that this, in the short, medium, and long term, it will leave behind knowledge and another way of experiencing life.
That's a very positive outlook. So, and let's think about community role in all of it. I'm curious to think. Do you think the role of the community has been changing today? Not just in post-pandemic, but in general, because I'm sure you're working with a lot of people, probably different age groups. Do you think that we already established that we probably connect slightly different, and how do we view the role of the community in Argentina? Because I know that in Argentina in general, it's the society is very like people are very close to each other, the family, the friends. I'm curious, has it been going through change, or I'm rambling right now. Yes, I am. I want to frame it properly. What is the role of community as strong as it used to be?
Once again, from my subjective view, based on my experience and limitations, I believe that, yes, in a way, there are two different expressions. People's smallest environments, as I understand it, have been revalidated, restored to their full value. And then there's a wider view, which has to do with some changes we have undergone. At the political level, at the social level, at the economic level, which makes it a little difficult for us, I think, today, to go through a process of constructive change. We're in a gray area, I would say. I don't know how to translate that, which many of us are going through. Traversing spaces of pain, of perplexity, in the face of changes coming from areas very difficult to control. In relation to socio-cultural and political changes and paradigms. I think that at the moment for Argentina, from my perspective, in my opinion, there is no clear picture, but rather we are uncertain about some changes that we don't know if we want or how we want them. or how to expect them. And that manifests itself in society. It manifests itself in the mood of society. Returning to counseling, in relation to this, it's also important to emphasize the action, the opportunity that counselors have in this accompaniment in the face of uncertainty and change, and especially in the most pressing moments that are happening in people's lives, the lives of groups, of communities. There are many counseling professionals working in different areas, in social, organizational, and educational aspects. In relation to couples and families, in relation to problematic consumption of substances as well. Manifestations of people in relation to everything we are lacking. Today, I believe that counseling can help to really go through these processes, to find internal changes, to find answers to external stimuli, and to adapt and work towards a better society.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, I'm very impressed with the fact that Argentinian communities are, in my opinion, very open to counseling. As I'm talking to my friends here, almost everybody has a counselor, which is, to me, it's incredible to see such a open-minded shift towards self-improvement. I am so glad to see that, because again, on a community level, on a personal level, it's improvement. If you are to recommend somebody to start moving that direction and start looking for a counselor, start asking yourself a question, where to start? What would be the first step, in your opinion, for somebody who probably needs to ask yourself a question, okay, time for me to start moving that direction? What would be your recommendation?
The most important thing, in my opinion, is that the person really perceives themselves as if the time has come in life to start changing. That marks the commitment and sets the course. We work on the basis of a concept that is fundamental to us, which is non-directiveness. Therefore, we do not offer recommendations. We do not offer suggestions or tell the consultant what to do. In reality, we provide a means of communication, so that the person can have an internal communication, an internal bond with themselves, with the notion of who they are, with their achievements, with their weaknesses and strengths, to always work on that with support, always accompanied. We offer a warm and welcoming space, a space of love, a space of great respect, and above all, a great deal of trust in human beings, trust in their ability, in what we technically call the actualizing tendency, which is also the backbone of this theoretical framework. And it is up to many of us to see that change happen as a result of a process of self-knowledge, self-validation, where the notion of oneself is strengthened. And people begin to find their own resources, their own tools, their own systems of improvement, maturity, and growth. And therefore, a profound change occurs. A change that is truly a transformation. And we collaborate with that. We collaborate so that later on, when the counseling process is over, according to the needs of the consultant is left in a more mature position to move forward with their own, having truly reaped the benefits of the person-centered approach for themselves, for their environment, for their context. And we trust that this is enough to start changing things, to help bring out those changes in people's lives that make them more fulfilled, more aware, more creative, more constructive.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining Connected Conversation today. Very interesting approach to counseling that we have here in Argentina, and very interesting story that Argentinian communities went through in post-pandemic world, and quite frankly still recovering. And thank you very much for way to look at self-reflection and self-connection with yourself, the way to take a look at the trauma, family trauma and community trauma. Again, if you have not started counseling yet, maybe that would be today the conversation to look at it and start a new journey. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you, Gabriel, for doing interpretation for us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for this space. It has been a wonderful experience. Thank you for letting me share my profession. Thank you for giving my profession such prominence here. So I'm the one who should be thanking you. I have received a lot of warmth and feel close to you.
Gracias. Thank you very much. And for all our listeners, what we will do is we will share the information to find your practice. I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of listeners here in Argentina and probably anywhere else. If we can do it online, you probably will do online counseling as well. That's going to be a way to, again, I highly recommend, if you haven't started doing counseling, that's the way to self-improve.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you for tuning in into Connected Conversation. As we continue on our first year, we are incredibly inspired by the potential of positive change within our communities. We invite you to be a part of our conversation, and we invite you to be a part of our journey. Please subscribe to our podcast to stay updated on our latest episodes. Your support is incredibly invaluable. It will help us to grow our community. We also encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments of each episode. Your feedback will help us to create even more meaningful conversations. We can inspire the change and connect with each other one conversation at a time.